Hey Floss Tube, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 27th Floss Tube video, and I've been working on Let Freedom Ring by Lila Studio, and I thought I would do a Stitch With Me video. So, in case you don't know, this is what it will look like eventually when it's finished. This is Let Freedom Ring. It's a design by Lila Studio, and it will be, this is Independence Hall, and then there's border and stuff on the bottom. I have finished all of this over here, and now I'm working across stitching Independence Hall. And right now I am working on another. Basically the way I've been working this is I've been stitching a column of windows and then filling in with the building color. So right now I am working on stitching windows, and then I'll start to work on the building color. So that's what I'm doing. At any rate, thanks for watching. If you're new, I hope that you enjoy my videos and that you will stick around to watch. If you are returning, thanks. Of course, as always, thank you for subscribing and liking and commenting to my videos. So I've been wanting to do another Stitch With Me video for quite some time, but it's been hard to find the time to do it. I've had a couple of really busy Saturdays. We had one of the valves in my outdoor sprinkler system went south, and it took me a couple of weeks to get that fixed. I did sprinkler systems while I was in college, and so I know how to do it myself. I'm not really very good. I always run into problems, which is why it took me 2 weeks to fix it. And then there have been other things that have been going on Saturdays. But right now, it's Sunday evening. I've had a long day at church, not only with our meetings, but I have some responsibilities that kept me at church all afternoon. And I've had a couple of hours to recover from that, and now I am stitching. So it's been a great day. I got to talk to my daughter to see how she's doing up at school. And there's a possibility I'll talk to my son. He's not quite as reliable as, well, my son calls me whenever he wants to. So I talk to him during the week, whereas my daughter calls me on Sunday evenings. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I am really enjoying working on this. I haven't had a lot of people ask me questions about lately on my channel, but I did have somebody ask me on Instagram why I'm not stitching diagonally with this piece. And the reason why is because this piece uses overdyed floss, and this red in here, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, it's got a little bit of variegation in it. And I was worried when I started that if I stitched this diagonally that I would get diagonal stripes in the building, and I didn't think that would look very good, or at least I didn't think it would look very natural. So I didn't want to take the risk of starting to stitch diagonally and then decide I didn't like it and then have to stitch a whole bunch have to take a whole bunch out or something. So this piece I am just stitching by basically horizontally. I'm stitching by rows, and it's been fun working on. There's been places that have been kind of tedious because I don't know. It's a little bit tedious, especially these trees. For some reason, they were very tedious for me. I'm glad they're done, and I'll have to, of course, I'll have to stitch more trees over on the other side of the building. Okay, so now you can see my back. So let's see here. Now I'm going to but I am really enjoying this, especially the more that I stitch, the more that I love. I have really enjoyed watching this building take shape. And it's really, I think it's really starting to look real, and I really like how it looks. So this has been fun. It's completely different from Winter Sampler. You know, Winter Sampler has a bunch of color changes, and this one doesn't so much. In fact, I have to be careful because I see the pattern in the chart, and I assume that the pattern is pretty constant, and so I'll be stitching away and then look at my chart and realize that I missed a deviation in the pattern. So I kind of have to be careful because I turn my brain off and stitch and then find out that I've made some mistakes. But that's fine. I mean, it hasn't been hard to take anything out, and I've been able to continue working. So I am getting really close to the middle of this building. So there's four columns of windows, and then there's a center column with the door, which will be right here, and then 4 columns on the other side. So when I do that door, then I'll have it all done. And I was gonna just do one leg down and then come back up on this, but I'm getting to the point where I'm used to making my X's as I go because of the overdyed floss. And so you see me there, I just started making X's. So now I just need to come up here and do this top row. And the last time I did windows, I didn't want to put my floss back on the bobbin, so I just started it on where the next window would be, and so that means I have to deal with floss being in the way a little bit. That's fine. Okay. Let's see. So if you've been paying attention a little bit, you have seen Caroline of Off the Grid Needle Arts is teaching Gerald, Ginger Gerald Stitcher, how to knit. And I've really enjoyed watching them. I enjoyed watching Caroline's tutorials because she taught me a couple of things, or I learned a couple of things from her. I used to knit. I think I mentioned that in one of my previous videos, but if you haven't watched all my videos, you probably don't know that. There was a time when I did more knitting than I did cross stitching. And I knit a couple of sweaters and a few pairs of socks. And then I kind of lost interest in knitting for a couple of reasons. One of those is that I started cross-stitching more, and I decided that I would rather cross-stitch than knit, and I couldn't have two hobbies. I could only do one in order to do as much as I wanted in one. Another reason is, and I kind of went with cross-stitching because, quite frankly, it's too hot to knit in Arizona. But watching them has kind of given me a bit of the knitting bug again. And I have actually started knitting, and I picked up a project that's kind of been sitting for a while. And it's there's a book called the Learn to Knit Afghan, which is written by Barbara Walker. And I've been making all of the squares that are in that book. It's kind of a cool book because it has a whole bunch of different techniques, and after you've knit all the squares in that book, you have a pretty wide range of knitting techniques and kind of an understanding of how some patterns can be more dense than others, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And you know, there's a whole series of squares that are just knit and purl squares, and then there's a series of squares that teach you how to cable, how to do twisted stitches. There's some squares that are lace squares. There's squares that have color work. There's squares that use slip stitches to make the patterns. There's squares that teach you how to increase and decrease. So after a while, after you do all those squares, you learn several different ways to increase and decrease, and make some really cool looking things in the process. I've been working on that because I owe my daughter an Afghan. My oldest kids have Afghans that I crocheted for them, but my youngest, because she's the youngest, doesn't have anything that I have made for her. And she has told me more than once that she feels left out because she doesn't have an Afghan that I knit for her. And I kind of thought that I would use this as the Afghan for her, but like I say, I kind of ran out of steam. So anyway, I've picked it up again. What I've been doing is I've been taking a square to work and knitting like 4 or 5 or 6 rows on the square at lunchtime. And if you want to just hold for a minute, I'll show you what I've done. So this is my square. This square is called twisted panels. Basically, these are twisted stitches, and what that means is when you knit so that you trade places. It's kind of like cabling with one stitch instead of several. And so there's like a braid. This is kind of like elk horn. So yeah, you can kind of see that I'm out of practice because down here, well, I was using a smaller circular needle, and that made it kind of difficult, and I was also twisting my stitches a different way, and that I remembered that I didn't like that way because the twists aren't quite as uniform as they are up here. But yeah, that's how long it's been as I've forgotten the way I like to do things. But I need to finish all those squares, and then after I do that, there's like 49 squares. Then I have to figure out how to sew them together, and I'm kind of dreading that because it's not going to be sewing one row against another, because every square has a different row count and a different stitch count. So, and I guess that's part of the reason why I've kind of let it sit, is because of all the sewing I'm going to have to do. And I don't know. We'll see what happens when I finish my I've been kind of playing around with the idea of running a border around each square, like just doing like a stockinette border with increases on the corners, and then that would and calculating so that every square had the same number of stitches all the way around, and then leaving the stitches live and weaving them together to sew it together. But in order to do that, I think I would need to decide on a different color. So I guess that's the other thing, is this yarn is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, and the color is Cloud. And the other color that I'm using is called, I cannot remember what it's called, Winter Night, and it's a kind of a navy blue. It's looking darker on camera than it is in real life. And then I think, I don't know what color to use to join, whether to use the cloud or the blue, or if I should come up with some kind of complementary color to knit them together to kind of set those off. I'm trying to decide what, that's another decision I'll have to make, as to what color to use. But yeah, I have most of the squares done, actually. I have about, 14 or 15 squares left to knit. So I really should be a little bit more diligent about it, I guess. Yeah. 14 or 15. So I guess if you guys are interested, let me know, and I could show you all the squares I knit. There's some pretty cool patterns in there. There are some that I, of course, don't like quite as much as the others, but there are some that I really like. Some really cool looking blocks. So anyway, yeah. So another question I've had is to talk about my setup a little bit more, and I think I'll do that at the end of this video. I'll show you. I've had people ask me to take a picture of my stand and my scroll frame in use, kind of. And it's kind of hard. I haven't found a good way to do that. So, but I think I can do that here today, so I'll do that. So the other thing that I thought I'd do is I thought I would do the tag, do the Crafty curator tag. Several people have done it, and I thought I'd do it as well. It's been a while since everybody else has done it, but I thought it'd be fun to do, so I guess we'll do that. So the first question is, if you could wish for a person in history to be represented in a mirabilia pattern, who would it be? Now, there are not a lot of mirabilia patterns that I particularly like. I mean, I did red. I really like red. And then I like the seasonal queens. I might do those someday, but I haven't. But there aren't a whole lot that I really like to stitch. And I know that she doesn't like to design men, so I don't know. I guess somebody like Martha Washington, somebody colonial. I think that'd be good. It'd be good to see how she would interpret a dress of somebody in a colonial style dress. What landmark area of the world would you have loved to see captured in a chatelaine? Well, kind of my home area is already captured in a chatelaine. That desert mandala, I don't know exactly what it's called. Is Arizona, really. Arizona and southern Utah. So the cactuses in that design are saguaro cactuses, which are in Arizona. And I really like saguaro cactuses. So, and then I think there's a Natural Arch, which is in Arches National Park, sorry, in southeastern Utah, which is, I love Arches. Arches is a great place. My wife and I went there for our first anniversary, actually, to celebrate our first anniversary. And that was really fun. So, but I think if I were to pick a place in the world that would be my absolute favorite place, or one of my favorite places, I guess, that would be like the Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park area. I love that area. I love the Tetons, and I love Yellowstone. They're not too far away from where my parents live, and I just love that area. It's so beautiful, and I think you could do quite a bit. I mean, you could get like the mountains. There's lots of waterfalls in Yellowstone. Of course, there's geysers like Old Faithful, and then there's also the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone and Yellowstone Lake. There's just all sorts of different things that I think that you could put in a design. So that would be the place that I would choose. What are the top 3 places that you love? Let's see. What are the top 3 places you want to visit that you've never been to, other than New Jersey in May, of course? Well, I'm not going to New Jersey in May, of course. I am going to Germany in May with my wife. And I'm not going to have a lot of time to stitch, so the last video that I did, I talked about possibly starting 3 pieces in May. That's not going to happen because I'm not going to have much time to stitch. We're going to my brother-in-law and his family right now are in Germany, and we are going to go visit them with my mother-in-law. So. And actually, I've kind of played around with the idea of taking knitting instead of cross stitch, just because knitting would travel a little bit better, I think. At any rate, 3 places that I would love to be. I've always wanted to. So I've mentioned before that I lived in Argentina for a couple of years. I would love to go back to Argentina and see some of the places that I didn't get to see because I spent most of my time in Buenos Aires. I spent most of my time in Capital Federal, actually, inside the capital itself. I spent some time in some of the suburbs. And then I also spent about 5 months out on the west side of the country in Mendoza province. But there are two places in Argentina that I really wanted to see that I wasn't able to. And one of those places is Iguazu Falls, which is up in the north in Misiones province. Iguazu, about the time that I graduated from high school, there was a movie that was in theaters called The Mission. And it opens with a view of Iguazu Falls and a man who's been nailed to a cross that goes over the falls. And ever since I saw that picture and saw how beautiful those falls were, I wanted to see them. So Iguazu Falls, I think they're so big that they make Niagara Falls look small in comparison, at least from what I understand. But it's the same kind of thing. There's just lots of water coming over in one area. And then the other place in Argentina that I would love to go is Ushuaia, which is down south. I'd actually love to see Patagonia. Ushuaia is on Tierra del Fuego. It's the southernmost city in Argentina. And it's kind of a jumping off point for people who want to go to Antarctica. And I'm kind of drawn to those Arctic, Antarctic climates more so than to tropical climates. Tropical doesn't really interest me so much as does like cold climates. So Ushuaia, and actually, if you were to say South America in general, there's another place that I've always wanted to go, and that is Machu Picchu, which is in the Andes Mountains in Peru. I would love to see Machu Picchu sometime. Another place I'd like to go is Iceland. So I would have, a year ago, I would have probably put Norway on the list, but I've been to Norway now. So Iceland, I would love to see Iceland. I'd also like to see probably New Zealand or Australia. I think I'd choose New Zealand over Australia. Just a sec, I'm having a hard time. So let's say that the extreme north and south of Argentina, with Peru thrown in as a bonus, and then Iceland and New Zealand. So yeah, I'd say that those are probably places, my three top places that I'd like to go, that I haven't been. Let's see here. What is it that you love most about stitching? What would you miss the most about stitching if you could no longer do it? Okay, so what I love most about stitching is I love how relaxing it is. There are days when I come home when I'm just wound up and I'm tired of having to deal with people, only because I'm an introvert and it just wears me out to deal with people. And so stitching is a good way for me to wind myself back down so that I can actually go to sleep. So that's what I love most. And I think that the thing that I would miss the most is probably watching the design come to life. I mean, like this. This is what feeds my passion, is to see things take shape. It's what drives me to continue stitching, because I want to see the next thing take shape. Okay, what is the last movie that made you cry? So I don't see a lot of movies, and there aren't a lot of movies that have made me cry, but there's one that did recently, and that was Coco. Our family went and saw Coco on Christmas Eve, and I don't know, there was something about the ending of that movie that was so sweet that it had me in tears. And my wife looked at me and she didn't. She said, "I'm not crying. You're crying. What, you know?" But I think what it did is it reminded me of my grandparents, who have all passed away and who I miss, and the thought of, well, I don't want to give anything away, but I just thought the ending was so sweet and so, just so, probably sentimental, a good word for it, I don't know, but I really enjoyed it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So, Coco. Okay, tell me a joke. So, my favorite kind of jokes are elephant jokes. And when I was a teenager, my grandfather gave me a joke book, and it had like 3 or 4 pages of elephant jokes. And I wish I still had that book. I don't have it anymore, but I pretty much memorized all of the elephant jokes in that book, and I just love them because they're really corny. So I'll tell you an elephant joke. So, how can you tell if an elephant has been hiding in your refrigerator? There are footprints in the Jell-O. So, and I just can't tell. I can't tell just one. So maybe I should do like an elephant joke of the podcast or something. How do elephants hide in the strawberry patch? They paint their toenails red. And I just barely remembered my absolute favorite elephant joke. So, why do elephants? No, I just ruined it. Why do elephants float on their backs? So seagulls can have a naval base. That's my absolute favorite. And I better stop before everybody just leaves in disgust. Okay, if you could be any animal or insect, what would you be and why? So, I don't know. I'm pretty happy being Homo sapiens. I don't know that I would choose to be another animal. Yeah. I have thought about this, and I just don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't have that much of an imagination. Okay. Say something that you love about 2 random floss tubers and why we should watch them. Okay, so the first floss tuber I'm going to talk about is Philip. He is Pip Stitch on YouTube. I really like him because, first of all, because he's British, and I really enjoy, and he expresses himself in a very British manner, if that makes any sense. And I love the way he expresses himself. And I also, we both share a love for Teresa Wentzler. So he's stitching right now the her 12 days of Christmas ornaments, and he's also doing, I think he's doing the small peacock piece that she did. And of course I'm doing English Garden Sampler, and I have several other of her designs that I would love to stitch one day. So we kind of share the same passion. We kind of share the same love for Teresa Wentzler. And we both, and so that's kind of fun. I always enjoy seeing what he's doing. He's getting close to finishing the Heaven and Earth piece that he's done, and it's looking really wonderful. So he's a great stitcher to watch. Another floss tuber, there are a lot. I think I would also say Stephanie at Lindy Stitches. She has a really quirky sense of humor, and I really enjoy watching her stitch, and it's kind of the same kind of thing. We've both worked on a couple of patterns at the same time. She's working on Winter Sampler. I just finished Winter Sampler. She also did And a Forest Grew, and I did a Forest Grew last year. So, and I just really like her. I just really like her sense of humor. Okay. If you found that you were suddenly unable to stitch, what would you do with your stash? Does anyone in your family know what to do with it if you couldn't devise them? So I think I would probably give it away. It might be hard to do. I don't know. That's something that I hope I never have to face. Part of the reason why is, I mean, if somebody had to do it without me, I mean, my wife has stitched before, so she kind of understands, she understands it, but there is nobody close to me, nobody else that really stitches. So, even if I were to give it away, I don't know who I would give it to. So I think I'd be, with or without me, there'd be some question as to what to do with it all. So that's a question I don't know really how to answer. Let's see. I mean, it's just stuff, right? I don't know. I would hope that one day my girls have both stitched a little bit, that my girls would be interested in, if I couldn't use it, that my girls would be interested in stitching someday. They're not right now, but maybe someday. So maybe it'd just stay in the family. What was your stitching like before social media became inundated with cross-stitching? Did you stitch less? Did you stitch more? Did you even have such a thing as a rotation? So I've kind of been involved with stitching on the internet for years. So I lurked in Rec Crafts Textiles Needlework. It's a Usenet group where there used to be a lot of stitchers. I lurked in that for years, and I mean, it's pretty much died. There's still people who post there every once in a while, and I have an alert that goes whenever anybody posts in there. So, so I've been involved with the internet and stitching for a long time. I also, I got the idea for my rotation from them. So I was kind of stitching a rotation before I found Floss Tube. And so I don't know that my stitching has changed all that much. I mean, my newfound interest in cross stitching, or really cross stitching, started before I got involved with Floss Tube. It started a couple years before, so I don't think social media has changed changed my stitching all that much. Oh, what I will say though is I do feel, since I post daily updates on Instagram, sometimes I feel like I have an obligation to post something. And if there's a night when I can't stitch, I kind of feel like I'm letting people down. Well, that's not quite the way, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm being derelict in my duty and not posting an update picture, I guess. Which, it's like I have to tell myself, you're doing it for yourself, not for the people who follow you on Instagram. That's about the only thing that social media has done to me, I think. Let's see. Do you find that cross-stitching on social media has helped you stay focused or caused you to become distracted? If it has helped you to stay focused, how do you manage to stay active on social media and still be productive in your stitching? If it has distracted you from your stitching, what have you done to get back on track with your stitching but still remain active in the community? So, I don't know. I don't stitch for social media. I stitch for myself. So I don't think it's really affected me too much, my stitching too much, other than, like I say, sometimes I feel like I've got to post regularly on Instagram just because that's what I've been doing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really think that I stitch for social media. Social media is just an outlet for me to share my stitching. And I don't know, I think I've said it before, but my time for watching FlossTube is really limited. I can't watch FlossTube at work because it's either too distracting or I get working and am not really paying attention to what people are saying, and so I actually, it's not really even worth having it on. So I only have a couple of hours every night to watch FlossTube, and so there's just no way that I can keep up with all of the videos that everybody makes. So I just watch what I can, and I have my favorites, of course. I think everybody has their favorites. I have my favorites of people I have to watch, and then some that I watch occasionally. So I don't know. I just can't feel obligated to watch everybody's videos just because there aren't enough hours in the day for me to be able to watch anything. So okay, I have a t-shirt that says cross-stitching saved my life once. Tell us about a time when cross-stitching saved your life or someone else's. Okay, so I mentioned this a couple videos ago, and it really did, and it's what kind of got me stitching again is, hold on just a minute. So I want to be here. So a few years ago, I was ill and hospitalized and had to have an operation. And my recovery from the operation was long, and I felt very sick for like several weeks. And cross-stitching helped. It was about all I could do to keep my mind off of how awful I felt. So I stitched quite a bit, and then when I was well, I just kept stitching. So that's how cross-stitching saved my life, is it gave me a distraction from an illness. Okay. If you were to look at your stash and the types of patterns that you have collected, what would your cross stitch say about you? Are you dark and dramatic? Are you warm, cuddly, and cute? Are you whimsical and magical? Are you primitive with a love for the old-fashioned patterns from the days of old? Are you colorful and adventurous and not easily defined? I would say that I am not easily defined because I have a little bit of everything. And you know, I have a little bit of everything, so there is a lot that has kind of caught my eye. And so I guess you could say that I'm eclectic. When it comes to music, I have very eclectic taste too. I like a lot of stuff. So, name something that was the telltale sign that you were addicted to cross stitch without hope of redemption. What was your aha moment? So, I'm not addicted. I could stop anytime I want to. Yeah, I could stop tomorrow, but I don't want to stop tomorrow, so I'm not really addicted. Either that or I haven't had an aha moment yet. At any rate, those are the questions. I hope I guess we will close it up now. Once again, thanks for watching my video. I have enjoyed stitching with you and hope that you have enjoyed stitching with me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you haven't subscribed to me, feel free to subscribe. And we will look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thanks. Oh, I was going to show you my setup. Let me finish this row and I will show you my setup really quick. Okay, so I am going to move you a little bit. Okay, so you can see my Omnic scroll frame. I have my really wide 90 centimeter scroll bars on right now, so it's pretty wide. Let me see here. Yeah. And then my stand just sits right here like this. And it just rests on my stand. Oh, I guess I'll show you this since it's coming to my pictures. This is how I position my camera so that I can do these Stitch With Me videos. I found this clamp on Amazon, and it's a camera mount that you can hook up to any type of pipe. And then this is a bracket that holds my iPhone that will scroll onto any camera mount. And then I built this stand of PVC to hold it. The biggest problem I have is with lighting. You'll see I have my little LED light to try to give me more light to get rid of some of the shadows that are coming from having the camera so close to to my fabric. But so far I kind of like how it works. So if you are struggling trying to figure out a way to to place your camera so that you can take good videos. This has worked really well for me. It's just high enough that I can kind of see what's going on in my camera while I'm sitting, and it's worked really well. So anyway, once again, feel free to share with me your comments, and I hope that you have a great week. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to like my videos. And we will talk to you later. Goodbye.